Hi, it's KCCK's Culture Call. I'm Dennis Green, and my guest is Mike Conrad from the Iowa Jazz Composers Orchestra and the University of Northern Iowa in the first of our series of pre-interviews for KCCK's Jazz Under the Stars concerts. Mike, welcome.
Thanks a lot.
Looking forward to having the ICJO on the Jazz Under the Stars stage. Right before we rolled tape, I remarked, you and I have, I've talked with you about the Jazz Composers Orchestra several times and have seen this great band too. But for those who may not be familiar, when people hear jazz big band, they kind of have a certain expectation, but this band kind of goes beyond that.
Right. Yeah, we're not going to be playing the hits of Glenn Miller or anything like that. Not to disparage that music, but this group is about playing stuff by Iowa jazz composers and playing, in many cases, music that is very new and forward thinking and centered around how can we take this, old paradigm of the big band and look for new ways of using this instrumentation.
This is not new to you, Mike, because really much of your performing and composing career has been recording new music or writing and performing new music for the big band idiom. So talk to me about young Mike Conrad going to college, probably an undergrad, wants to be a composer and thinking, well, what I want to do is compose new music for big band.
Yeah, well, I think it started with the environment at UNI that was created there long ago and fostered by Bob Washut and continued by Chris Merz. And it's an environment that really encourages creativity and student writing. And I found, having been other places now, that it's somewhat rare, at UNI, students get really excited about writing because they know that in many cases they'll have the opportunity to hear their work performed at a high level and oftentimes recorded as well. So there's not this there's nothing stifling it, right? It goes the other way. It gives students a reason to really work on something and bring it to the finish line so that they can hear all that hard work come to life, which is, of course, we as composers, that's the whole reason we do it, right? And it was my sophomore year as an undergrad at UNI when Maria Schneider came to visit, did a whole residency at UNI. And so I got the opportunity to hear her lecture, to work with her one-on-one a little bit in a lesson. She heard a big band piece that I had written and gave me some feedback, and then I was playing lead trombone in UNI Jazz Band 1, playing a bunch of her music, which she conducted on the concert. So this was like the perfect time in my life where I was just starting to get into writing music for big band, and then suddenly this huge inspiration comes from this monumental figure in jazz composition, and it was just that's where it really took off for me.
And then you continue doing this in grad school, where you created the first iteration of the Colossus Orchestra.
Yeah, that's right. A couple of friends of mine from there, Levi Sailua and Dave Chisholm, the three of us had some music we had written that we were not necessarily bringing to the ensembles there. To kind of speak about what I just said at UNI, the culture is different at every school, and it was such there that we couldn't necessarily just assume that something we wrote was going to get programmed on an Eastman Jazz Ensemble concert or the way that at UNI it was very much encouraged. So we kind of built our little side project that the three of us contributed music to and started booking gigs and played at a Gen conference and played in New York City as a part of a series that J.C. Sanford curated there, and then made an album. And as you know, when I moved back to Iowa, I brought some of that music with me and formed a big band centered around that book. And then a lot of the people that were involved in that project ended up becoming kind of the core members of the Iowa Jazz Composers Orchestra.
So now you've done undergrad, you've done grad school back in Iowa for a while, and then of course you went to work on your PhD. as with your fellow students and musicians that you come across, maybe when you were in Colorado and other times in your travels, what's their reaction when you tell them about the, kind of the composer rich atmosphere that we have here in Iowa, and particularly in the area surrounding the UNI?
Yeah, I don't know that people really realize what's going on here till they experience it for themselves. And I've seen this in a number of different ways, both as, now a faculty member at UNI. When we bring in guest artists, I think they're often really pleasantly surprised when they hear UNI Jazz Band 1 on that first rehearsal, let's say the night before the Tall Corn Jazz Festival starts. And this guest artist is rolling into, in their mind, middle of nowhere, Iowa. And all right, let's see how this college big band does playing my music. And then they hear these students and they're like, whoa, okay, this is a pretty high level, maybe not what I expected. I think we've often experienced that kind of like pleasantly surprised sort of thing. And I think the same goes when people hear this band. When I had the opportunity to share recordings of this group at the International Society of Jazz Arrangers and Composers Symposium last summer in Austin, Texas, I got that sort of reaction of like, wow, okay, Iowa, cool, sounds pretty good, which I think we just tend to get underestimated, maybe, and underappreciated. And that was a big part of the reason for forming the group and kind of making this our mission to say, look at what we've got going on here.
And now you are, particularly at UNI, but all over, I would argue, but particularly at UNI, you're kind of in what I kind of consider your third generation of Iowa jazz composers. If you kind of think of, Bob and Chris as the first go around, and then, and then you, and now I'm thinking about, fairly recent graduates and some current students. Paul Lichty comes to mind as someone who has now seen multiple generations of Iowa composers and wanting to fill that niche going forward.
Yeah, and we're trying to run the gamut in this band in terms of, that kind of multi-generational thing. We've got plenty of music by Bob Washut in the book. Of course, we play some of my music and Chris's, and then some from these younger writers like Paul and like Nate Sparks in Des Moines. And we played a piece by a recent UNI graduate, Jack Dunning. We've got going into his sophomore year at UNI, this student who's just writing up a storm. He's already in just 1 year of college, he's produced a number of big band charts, and his name's Sean Kiefer, and shows no signs of slowing down. So yeah, that's always really exciting. And I think it goes back to that kind of atmosphere that's created there, that idea of supporting this creativity and this environment where people want to make some new stuff.
You've mentioned a few of the composers. I know, is there still a Bix Beiderbecke piece in the book?
Yeah, there's this guy Gates Thomas who was living in New York City. He's from Iowa, but moved back during the pandemic. Like many people, was thinking, well, rent is really high here and I can't really do anything. So he made his way back to Davenport and has been living there ever since. Did this great arrangement of Bix Beiderbecke's Davenport Blues, which we played a couple times. It's a feature for John Ilabuni. John, unfortunately, won't be on this Jazz Under the Stars concert, so we won't be doing it on this one, since it's kind of, his specific little feature.
I just think it's really cool that you're able to, to so totally run the gamut, literally from the first Iowa jazz composer to students who are still in undergrad. Run down the list of who's in the band.
All right. So in the saxophone section, Robert Espy is our lead alto player. Robert and I go way back and used to live together when we were students at UNI. Jen Teedy, Christopher Merz, Nolan Schrader, and Simon Harding, who's also in Cedar Falls. In the trombone section, Anthony Williams, professor at UNI, Rich Med, Joel Nagel, and Zach Morton on bass trombone. In the trumpet section, Corey Schmidt, Dave Rezick, John Ilabuni, who I mentioned, normally plays in the band. This time filling in for John will be Aaron Van Housen. and on fourth trumpet, Steve Wheeler of Iowa City. And in the rhythm section, our newest member, replacing Steve Grismore, who has recently retired, is Dan Padley. Just had his first performance with the band last week for Jazz in July at Hoyt Sherman Place, and sounded beautiful. And then, of course, myself on piano, Drew Morton on bass, and Dave Teedy on drums.
Well, that is truly an all-star gathering of Iowa musicians to perform this music. We're at Jazz Under the Stars on the 3rd of August, Thursday, and at the time we're recording this, it's right in the middle of that terribly hot week. So we're planning on, we've ordered good weather.
Yes.
Warming up for the Iowa Jazz Composers Orchestra will be a student ensemble led by guitarist Ana Koch, who is a City High grad, who's now at the University of Iowa, and Marvin Turong is on that, and Peter Stoltz, who has been in some of our student ensembles in the past as well, and I think Bennett Walker on bass, I think, is rounding out that ensemble. That's been fun for us to put a student ensemble on this great stage ahead of our headline bands. Before we go, Mike, now we've talked around, you mentioned briefly, that we play a little of my music, but now I'm going to really ask you to do something which is kind of uncharacteristic, and that's brag on yourself just a little bit, because some of your Fertile Soil Suite and those have really attracted some attention and won some awards.
Oh yeah, thanks. One of those pieces from the suite earned what's called a Sonic Award from the International Society of Jazz Arrangers and Composers. So that was just a great surprise to me, and something that was really, really cool to be able to receive that award in Austin last May, and hear the piece played by a really terrific big band there. And then recently I was named the winner of the 2023 Sammy Nestico Award, which is given by the Airmen of Note. And so I'm currently working on a commission for them.
Yeah, that comes with the opportunity to write a chart for that band.
Right. Yeah, you get a cash prize, but it's also kind of your commission fee for you to generate something new for them, which I'm really excited about. Also, it's kind of daunting. It's a big, high-profile opportunity, and the band is amazing. They can play basically anything, which almost makes it harder because, it's like, well, what am I going to write for them? They could pretty much pull off whatever I do. So my current approach has been really to write something for the IJCO, these musicians that I know really well and love. To kind of have them in mind almost as I'm generating this piece. And then I may tweak some things here and there. Like I do know a couple of people in the Airmen of Note from my time at Eastman, the bassist and pianist were both classmates of mine. So I might be thinking about their solo voices a little bit and their capabilities. But yeah, currently have very few measures composed. Just weeks to go, but you know how it goes.
Well, nothing enhances creativity like a deadline.
That's right. It's, for me, I found it's kind of a requirement in many ways. Otherwise, I'll start a lot of things and maybe not finish a lot of things.
Well, we're glad to give you a chance to take a break from that writing process to come and perform the ICJO at KCCK's Jazz Under the Stars. Y'all are going to open up our 2023 series at Noelridge Park on August 3rd. The student band, led by Ana Koch, takes the stage at 6:30, and the Iowa Jazz Composers Orchestra at 7 o'clock. We'll also be broadcasting the concert live on KCCK, and maybe even doing a Facebook live stream. So even if you can't make it to the park, there's no excuse for you to miss this great performance. Mike, where can people find the ICJO online if they'd like more information?
Yeah, we have a website that's just iowajazzcomposersorchestra.com, and got some recordings up there, a link to the full YouTube video of the Fertile Soil Suite, which has the high quality studio recordings and some interviews with the band. And then I also keep our calendar of kind of when and where we're playing, which lately has been every couple of months or so, which is pretty good. I mean, the band is sounding better than ever, now that we've been playing for a few years, and this most recent concert, I was just knocked out without, I'm always impressed with these musicians, but I think, yeah, people are in for a treat if they choose to come out to Jazz Under the Stars on the 3rd.
Well, I've been just, biting my nails, waiting for the opportunity to get this band on our stage. And I'm so excited that we're finally going to be able to get it done. So, Mike, thanks for joining me today. And we'll look forward to seeing you and the rest of the band and hearing a great night of music on the 3rd.
All right. Thanks. See you then.
You can hear the Culture Crawl live on the radio many weekdays at 10:30, or download the podcast, watch or listen on your own schedule at kcck.org/culture, or using your favorite podcast app. I'm Dennis Green, and I'll talk to you later.